I would like to thank Andrea very, very much for inviting me here today and to speak to you about Holocaust distortion, which is the focus of my work since 20 years, I would say. Yesterday was Yom HaShoah. Tomorrow is the Hungarian Holocaust Memorial Day. On those days, we honor and commemorate the victims, the survivors and their families. We pay our respects. But since some years now, we do this in a situation of increasing and violent anti-Semitism, increasing Holocaust distortion, disrespect for survivors, the victims and their memory, and in a general atmosphere of what I call Holocaust remembrance neglect. But Holocaust Memorial Day is significant for each country, and it is significant for all society, not just the Jewish communities. I will speak today about Holocaust distortion, an issue that was overlooked and underestimated for many years, far too long, an issue that is causing a lot of harm and is very dangerous. But I would start by talking about the differences of Holocaust denial and distortion. I will give you examples of distortion. I will put all this in context with a few of the recent and new challenges in the field of Holocaust education and remembrance, Holocaust remembrance neglect. And I will talk about the relevance of Holocaust education and remembrance regarding the protection of democracy and open societies. So I will start with Holocaust denial. The fact that the Holocaust happened is obvious. The Holocaust, after all, is the best documented genocide in history. Not only are there testimonies of survivors and the liberators of the concentration and the death camps, but the Nazis themselves documented their activities in much detail, in official files and reports. SS officers who conducted the killings took photos of mass shootings, of mass graves, etc., and wrote about them in letters home. To deny the facts is not something that will convince mainstream society. Those who actively deny the Holocaust, write about it, try to present proof that the gas chambers, for example, did not exist, do know the facts very well in order to counter these facts with their lies. Holocaust denial is always based on political motivation. Whether it is neo-Nazi groups who want to rehabilitate the movement or a state-sponsored denial as being undertaken by Iran for decades, they all know the truth. But as the Nazis themselves, they are very much aware that you can't win over a majority with an anti-Semitic agenda when you admit that these monstrous crimes took place. Holocaust denial is a form of anti-Semitism and is an excuse of for anti-Semitism. One needs to delegitimize the victims of the Holocaust in order to target and attack Jews again. So, is Holocaust denial a big threat? I think it should not be underestimated and of course never be tolerated, never. However, I think a much bigger threat to Holocaust remembrance is Holocaust distortion. Holocaust denial is not mainstream. The public will not fall for deniers, but easily for Holocaust distortion. Professor Yehuda Bauer, my great teacher, one of the world's leading researchers on the Holocaust, the founder of the IRA and the author of the Stockholm Declaration, once said, "A half-truth is worse than a whole lie." Distortion, unlike denial, admits that the Holocaust happened, but is manipulating the facts. Distortion is harder to spot, it is far more sophisticated. And what makes it so dangerous is that it is often seen as a lesser evil, the little brother of Holocaust denial that does not need to be taken too seriously. Distortion is often seen as an opinion, as something which falls within the freedom of speech. But distortion is not an opinion, it is also a lie. There are only facts about the Holocaust, and there cannot be different opinions about those facts. Holocaust distortion is not just the necessary stepping stone to anti-Semitism today. It is also, like Holocaust denial, a serious form of anti-Semitism itself. The motivation behind Holocaust distortion is also political. So what are concrete examples for Holocaust distortion? It is actually an interesting fact that distortion of the Holocaust started already with the Holocaust by the Nazis themselves, by talking about Sonderbehandlung, special treatment, or Endlösung, final solution, instead of what it was, murder and planned total annihilation of the Jewish people. An example for Holocaust distortion was also the discourse in many communist countries after World War II. The official language was victims of fascism. This was an easy way out of avoiding naming the Jews as the main target, and it was an attempt to make all victims equal. Let me be very clear. On a personal, on the human level, all victims of murder are indeed equal. They suffer the same. Their death is based on a crime. The suffering and grieving of their families is the same. Murder is murder. And this is definitely true about all victims of Nazi persecution and murder. But when it comes to the analysis of the Holocaust, we must be accurate. And an important part of accuracy is to be clear about the victims. Not all victims of Nazi persecutions were victims of the Holocaust. To just talk about the Nazi victims in general ignores the specificity of the Holocaust. Nazi Germany had a firm plan to annihilate the Jewish people worldwide. It had lists of the estimated Jewish population of all countries, not only those countries that they had occupied or were planning to occupy. And they were planning to kill all of the Jews all over the world. This is unprecedented and needs to be understood. The Holocaust was based on anti-Semitism and not on general hate. In this context, I would like to refer to Anne Frank. She wrote several times that she did not want to be remembered only as Jewish. She wanted to be seen as a writer, a dreamer, a person. And it is crucial to respect Anne's wishes. No victim of the Holocaust should be reduced to their Jewishness. This is a reason why it is important to learn and teach about Jewish life before and after the Holocaust in this context. However, when analyzing the causes and consequences of the Holocaust, it is also very important to stress the fact that Anne was Jewish. She was targeted and murdered because she was Jewish, not as a writer or a dreamer. So while there are strong and important general lessons to be learned from the Holocaust and the ideology that led to it, it is important to never lose sight of the specifics when it comes to it, the victims. But accuracy is equally needed when it comes to the perpetrators and their collaborators. Let me be clear. It was Germany who was responsible for the Holocaust, period. But the magnitude of the Holocaust could not have happened without local collaboration. And that means, in many countries, a confrontation with a very uncomfortable part of their past. However, collaboration needs to be addressed. Leaving out this part when remembering the Holocaust or focusing exclusively on the rescuers is also a form of distortion. Other forms of distortion are mentioned in the IRA definition on Holocaust denial and distortion. Those include intentional efforts to excuse or minimize the impact of the Holocaust or its principal elements, such as anti-Semitism. A gross minimization of the number of victims. Attempts to... Is it me? Attempts to blame the Jews for causing their own genocide, or claiming Jews take advantage of the Holocaust today. I would also add to these examples that abusing the term Holocaust for contemporary issues is a form of distortion. So when animal rights groups talk about the Holocaust on your plate, or anti-abortion groups talk about a baby Holocaust, that is also distortion of the Holocaust. Blaming political opponents as Nazis is also a form. I would speak about this in a minute. And most insidious is it to equate the victims of the Holocaust with the perpetrators, Jews with Nazis. This is a frequent and obscene occurrence often used to delegitimize the existence of the State of Israel. One of the newest forms of distortion can also be artificial intelligence. We need to be aware of the ability of AI to generate authoritative-looking images, videos, or other content that distorts the Holocaust. Armies of bots comment and post. AI has unleashed an epistemological crisis where traditional ways of proving something to be true are in doubt. And this is very damaging and dangerous in times of low institutional trust as today. The internet is being flooded with fake news, with false imagery, conspiracy theories, etc. And this is what teachers are up against when teaching about the Holocaust today. I think we all have to be aware that the young generation does not differentiate anymore between the real and the digital world. There is only one world for them, and parts of it are digital. And this part of their world is full of lies. In a presentation from a UNESCO colleague a while ago, we were presented with the number that 49% of all Holocaust-related content on Telegram is outraged denial. It is very easy today to turn the video testimony of a Holocaust survivor into a testimony of Auschwitz having been a day spa. AI provides endless opportunities to deny and distort the Holocaust. So why does it all matter? Holocaust distortion, first of all, is morally wrong. It is a disgrace to the victims and to the survivors and their families. Families in which a whole generation had to grow up and live their lives without grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. To neglect or downplay this reality is simply outrageous. And Holocaust distortion is also extremely dangerous today. It is one of the strongest and most efficient tools, not just for anti-Semitic, but for any anti-democratic, nationalistic, and anti-pluralistic movements. From the far right to the far left, Islamistic and even radical Christian groups, they all distort the Holocaust. And with this, they pave the way for radicalization into mainstream society and then normalize anti-Semitism. Distortion, as I said, is a justification for anti-Semitism, and it even served as a justification for a war. The world witnessed one of the most radical forms of Holocaust and historical distortion in February 2022, when Russian troops invaded Ukraine. Vladimir Putin justified this deadly invasion by distorting history and making false claims, referring to the crimes of Nazi Germany. He stated that Russia would strive for the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine. The claim that under the leadership of a Jewish president, Ukraine was a Nazi state is one of the most radical and ridiculous forms of Holocaust and history distortion. This is what my colleague Mark Weitzman called distortion on steroids. The distortion of history is not only an attack on liberal democracies and their values, it kills people. Mostly Jews, but also non-Jews. Holocaust, now I come to a different part of the speech, which is about the Holocaust remembrance neglect. Holocaust distortion and anti-Semitism are also causing what I call Holocaust remembrance neglect. The trend to shy away from teaching or learning about the Holocaust or remembering the Holocaust altogether. I think for all of us in this room, Holocaust remembrance and education is more or less a given. And it should indeed not be controversial to teach and learn about the Holocaust, its causes, its consequences, and lessons. And yet it is controversial, more than ever. This was not the case until recently, but this is where we are today. Since the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th, 2023, we see a dramatic rise of anti-Semitism. And Holocaust remembrance became very unpopular. Holocaust survivors are being uninvited to speak to students. Holocaust exhibitions are being banned from public spaces. Students avoid class visits to Holocaust museums by calling in sick that day. An example from that, it comes from Brussels, where the colleagues there told me that many classes canceled their visits after October 7th. And that is the museum where 4 people were killed in a jihadist attack in 2014. I'll give you 2 quotes now with which teachers are often confronted. This is not the time for Jewish victimhood. The Holocaust is not the genocide we should talk about today. This is what students, parents, or even colleagues tell teachers lately. The knowledge about the Holocaust is declining in many countries. Learning about it is not a given anymore. Holocaust remembrance is being politicized and questioned. History is being minimized. And this is a situation we all find ourselves in, and most worrisome many, many teachers are facing. So what might be possible responses to such challenges? We need to be clear why we teach and learn about the Holocaust, why it is remembered, even if it's challenging. The question often arises, is Holocaust education the right tool to fight and prevent anti-Semitism? Is it the one tool, the silver bullet against anti-Semitism? And the answer to that question is very clear. No, it is not. But on the other hand, there is no fight against anti-Semitism without knowledge about the Holocaust. Holocaust remembrance is nowadays often seen as an act of sympathy or solidarity for the Jewish people or for Israel. And the reverse conclusion seems to be that rejecting Holocaust education and remembrance is an act of solidarity with the Palestinian people. My response to that is, Holocaust remembrance should not be politicized in any way or being seen as taking sides in any current conflicts. Holocaust remembrance is paying tribute and respect to the victims and the survivors of the Holocaust, and they were Jewish. This is an act of decency, and we all are morally obligated to let the knowledge about the Holocaust, the memory of the victims, and the experiences the survivors shared with us never be forgotten. That in itself is important and should never be questioned. However, Holocaust remembrance and Holocaust education is more. Remembering and teaching about the Holocaust is an act of civic duty. We need to learn about what was sometimes called the failure of civilization. What were the mechanisms that led to the exclusion of fellow citizens, their devaluation, humiliation, deportation under the eyes of their colleagues and neighbors, and to their murder? And all with the assistance of locals, of regular members of communities. So, Holocaust remembrance, teaching about the Holocaust, is not only a tribute to the victims, it is what societies do. They investigate the past, their past, they try to learn from history. They investigate the good and glorious parts of their past and celebrate them with pride. And what is being done in democracies, and that is a big difference to autocracies or totalitarian systems. They also look into the darker parts of history and learn from it. As it is in real life and with people, nobody can claim to have always done everything right in their life. I quote you, Professor Judah Bauer again. He said, when it comes to the Holocaust, nobody comes out clean, nobody. So all the attempts to tweak the facts, only picking the good parts to rewrite history, we must reject in the strongest possible way. Because this is what I would not just call an early warning sign, it is a first step away from democracy. The first thing autocracies do is take over and control the media, shut down the internet, and attack uncomfortable facts and the truth as lies. Those who tweak and question the facts or call them fake are attacking not just the historical facts, the victims and the survivors. They attack all of society, our very way of living. This is an attack on all of us and our values. This is why Holocaust education is not just something that has to do with the past. It is one important tool to protect our free, liberal and open societies as we know them, and we need to protect them now. Holocaust education and the knowledge of the historical facts provide us and future generations with early warning signs. Symbols and acts of hatred appear in public spaces, not as jokes, but as warnings of what could come next. These are not isolated incidents. They are signals that we have seen before. And this is what many Holocaust survivors express today when they talk about their worries and fears. They are afraid history will repeat itself and something like the Holocaust could happen again. And secondly, their fear is that they will be forgotten. I mentioned it before, and please let me stress it again. The memory of the victims and survivors is under attack. Holocaust remembrance as we know it might not be continued on a wide scale in the future if we don't stand up against that. So I come to the teachers now. Teachers report about being very insecure or reluctant to pick up the topic even when it's mandatory. They don't feel confident enough to stand up and counter the accusation towards Jews or Israel, towards the false proof of Holocaust denial and distortion, AI generated, or the anti-Semitic conspiracy theories they bring into the students bring into the classroom. They are too often left without proper training and tools to deal with those challenges. But teachers are the ones we need in this fight to keep the memory alive. They stick their heads out there, day in, day out, at the front lines of our communities, of our societies. And, believe it or not, they are being listened to. Polls show that when it comes to the Holocaust, young people trust the older generation. They trust their parents and they trust their teachers. And often teachers are the first from whom young people hear about the Holocaust. They need tools, training, and networks. If we expect teachers to throw themselves into this field, teach about the Holocaust in a changing and challenging environment, they need to feel confident, valued, and supported. So let's give them all the support we can. In order to do so, actually, I changed my professional career from working with governments and now am involved with the Olga Lengel Institute for Holocaust Education and Human Rights for teacher training. So the Holocaust could only happen because the values of human dignity of all, democratic principles, and the rule of law were destroyed. It happened also because of the indifference of mainstream societies all over Europe. It happened because the warning signs were not taken seriously, and these are lessons we need to keep alive. This means learning from the Holocaust and not just about the Holocaust. So when we come across Holocaust distortion, we should not take it as a misinformed but harmless phenomenon. This is how it begins, but this is not how it ends. We need to be alerted and ready to fight back in order to secure Jewish life and communities, and also our democracy, our pluralistic societies, and our way of living. We should never allow to have Holocaust remembrance and the work against anti-Semitism being played against each other. We need them both. They go hand in hand. And that is not only on Holocaust Memorial Day, because we all know here, never again is today, and that is every day of the year, not just Holocaust Memorial Day. Thank you very much.